Alright, so from whence we last left off, what I'm going to do is show you now how to create some procedural textures that will kind of bump up what we have here a little bit. Okay, so here we go. So let's do this. I just want to use a variety of them here. So I'm not a huge fan of some of these. I'm only using them because I want to show you what they are. All right. So let's say, for instance, that my table here was not actually, I'm going to turn my background off because it's not this one, sorry, this one. And I don't need you, and I don't even know why you're here. Get out of here. Nobody invited you. I'm going to turn my room off so I can grab the items. The room's like for whatever getting in the way. But let's say that, for instance, the tabletop here, right? Let's say I didn't want it to be just this pier block. Like, that's what it actually is. But let's say for some reason I wanted it to be wood, okay? Now, personally, what I would do is go find wood texture and adjust it and what have you, right? Or manually paint it and that sort of thing. But another thing you do is actually use procedural textures, okay? So if you look down here, you'll see there are two types of textures that we have. We have 2D textures and we have 3D textures. All right? Now, there's a difference between the two. I'm going to start off actually with 3D just because the 3D, in a weird way, is actually kind of easier. So if we do the 3D ones, the way they work, they have these various things. They create a pattern that just gets applied onto the model based off of an algorithm, okay? So what I'm going to do, what I want you to do, is I'm going to go to my desk material here, okay? And right now we just have a solid color applied. What I'm going to do is I'm going to attach a node to it. I'm going to click on this guy. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the 3D, and then you'll see we have these options. Don't do this. I'm just using this for demonstration. Leave yours at this point right now. I'm going to come back to this, and we're going to switch it to a different one, but I just want to show you. So, for instance, if I were to use this solid fractal, right, what that's going to do, notice that I have texturing on too. If you don't have texturing on, if you're in 5 and not 6, you won't see the images. So what it does is it creates this pattern, right? And it's all based off of this 3D, and you should see it somewhere. Usually, it should be right at origin. So, and you're on the same file than I am, basically. So yours will be right here, roughly. And what it does is basically imagine that you have a big old vat of something, right? Of paint that you mix together. And inside of it, it's volumetric. It has a pattern in it, and you can put your object in it. Now, if you take that object and you move that object around, okay, it's going to slide through it. So see how the texture is staying still? Or if the object stayed still and I moved that pattern would move in it, okay? It completely disregards UV. So if I go to UV editor, you're going to see the UVs on this guy. Sweet. This is exactly what I wanted, was this to be gigantic. The UVs look like this, but they don't really work for what I have here. If instead, let's put checkers on, you're going to see that's a checkers. See how it's all stretched out and not good? Like if I actually had a picture on this, it would actually be, particularly this part because we extruded this out, it's all messed up. The 3D texture doesn't use UVs. It just basically procedurally puts this material on there, okay? Now if you want to adjust it, at least the way it looks here, you can actually scale this, right? So if I want to make the pattern more often, I could scale it much smaller, okay? So let's say I'm going for like a marbled look, I could do that. I could make it much bigger. You could also, like I said, move it around. You saw me doing that earlier, right? And you could even rotate it, such as it didn't do. Okay. I don't know what is going on with that. W-E, come on, E. And you could even rotate it, okay? So that's what 3D materials do. So I'm going to use the one that's wood, but honestly the wood one stinks. So I'm just going to show you it. So what I'm going to do now, yours should still be on that other thing there, so just disregard what I'm doing here. If you ever connect something, you want to get rid of it, you can always just right-click. So notice that I applied that material. I clicked on this, it was a checkers. Now it's an arrow. That means there's something connected to it. If I want to see the thing that's connected, I would just click on this, and it will show me the thing it's connected to it. And right now it's a solid fractal 3D texture, okay? I'll click back on the material up here, though. I want to break that connection. I'm going to right-click over this name and hit break connection. You don't need to do this. You should still be at the other thing, but that's what I need to do. And instead, I'm going to get rid of this too. And instead, what I'm going to do is on my desk material, I'm just going to click this. So you should be in here. I'm going to click 3D, and I just want you to choose wood. So now you're going to have this wood texture. And this wood texture is based off of this here. So I'm just going to move this up so I can see it a little bit better. Now, some of them preview better than other ones. You can see this one is not previewing well at all. Leave it like that. And the best way I can do it is to click on this to see our preview render. Yours might preview okay. Mine's just not. And it's on Arnold, so I'm going to hit escape. If you're preview, so you probably hit preview, you're going to hit this. It's going to say Arnold. And it's going to take a very long time. And you can hit escape to stop it from rendering. And then it will ignore you subsequently. There it goes. And I'm just going to do Maya Software. So just hit on this and do Maya Software. And then I'll just hit re-render. And it should render considerably faster. And there we go. And now I can see what that wood, I'm going to put the wood more in frame here so I can see it. And then I can see what that wood looks like because it's not previewing well. So you can kind of see what I'm saying where it doesn't look that great. I don't know. Maybe if I was doing a bowling alley. So if I go like this, I'll get really close to the edge. You can see the edges usually kind of come out okay. So you can see how this material works. It's kind of neat, but I don't really like it, but I'm just going to leave it just so that you can see it. Now, if I want to adjust this material, I'm just going to close out of that. I'm going to hit this little arrow. So I have the desk selected, hit this little arrow. It'll bring me to my wood material. And then I can change the color here. So like, let's say I wanted the filler color to be, more of a darker, robust, I don't know, wood or something. Like I want it darker. And then I could take this vein color and make that much darker. So obviously the vein's the inside part. And then, vein spray. You can play with these things. I don't know what they all mean necessarily because I don't put these to memory. But these are all basically the adjustments. So you can do that. And then also, again, with that 3D texture, if I wanted the pattern to be bigger or smaller, I would just make it bigger or smaller. So like if I felt like there should be fewer wood planks, or I'm sorry, this would make more. If I wanted there to be fewer, I would make it smaller. Oh no, I'm sorry, it would go bigger. I was thinking the opposite. Okay, I make it bigger, and then when I go to render it, you'll see that there'll be more or fewer striations in the pattern. At least there should be. And then if I scale it the other way, come on. This one's actually very interesting because watch if I rotate this to the side. It was going to make it look like it was cross-cut instead. So watch this. Let's get closer so you can see it. Because the pattern actually has kind of a direction. So now it looks like I cut it this way across the grain. You see what I'm saying? So depending on how you want it to look, it could look considerably different. I'm going to undo that. But feel free to just play around with it. So, but that's a 3D texture, and there's a bunch of them. The only problem with, there's a lot of different problems with it. For one, you can't really transfer this to like Unity or a game engine. This is built in Maya, so you'd have to bake it down, meaning that you'd have to make it into a 2D image. But also, if this object were to move, right, if this gets animated or shifted around, that texture is going to call what we call swim. It's going to look like it's flowing through it. So that's also not very good. So usually what I do too is I will take this and then I will just shift select. So I select this, hold shift, select this second, and then hit P. And now whenever this moves, if I were to move this, it'll move because it's parented to it. It'll move with the table. But yeah, so that's the 3D texture. You can play around with them if you want. If you want to try to play around with them, throwing them on other things, go for it. They're pretty fun. They're not like the wood one. You were like, oh, awesome, they have a wood one. It just doesn't look very good. You're better off just like grabbing a wood image and throwing it on there than doing that. So that's a 3D texture. All right, so that's the easy one. So the harder one would be the 2D textures. Okay. So let's do the rug. So the rug, I want to put have like a fabric on it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, with it selected, I'm just going to go ahead and go to, I'm going to put a 2D texture. So let's got this selected. Okay. So the 2D textures, you can see here, we have bulge, we have checkers, we have cloth, we have fluid texture, fractal. Some of them are kind of similar to the other ones. Okay. Ramp and water, simplistic noise. But basically, it's just going to create a texture based on a pattern, okay? Or create a pattern, well, same thing. But it's going to create it by math. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this to connect, and I'm going to choose 2D texture, and I'm just going to go ahead and choose cloth, because it's cloth, right? So I'm going to click on cloth, and then you're going to see it's going to do this. And so basically, it's meant to look like stitching, okay? I'm meant to come back to this, but if you look at it, you can see it's too often. It's not looking very good, okay? Now this, unlike the 3D textures, does use the UV space. So for instance, let's say I'm going to use this as an example here. If I take that 3D texture, the wood that I just did, where are you, wood? Disk, material. And if I throw it onto this wood, right, if I go to render this, you're going to see it's going to look perfectly fine. Okay, don't do this, I'm just showing you. Right, no seams. I mean, it looks dumb, but it works, okay? If I were to take my rug texture and throw it onto that, okay, and if I were to render this, hopefully you can tell. You're going to see the seams much more easily. There's going to be like weirdness. Oh, this isn't too bad. You can kind of see it here. See how it gets kind of weird? Because this is based off of the UV. So what 2D textures do is it actually generates a 2D, oh my God, a 2D texture that's just laying over top of the model. Okay, so that's so whatever the UVs are, they do matter with it, as opposed to the 3D ones, which do not. Okay, so it's just same thing as putting a picture on top of it, just like when we did the character texturing. It's just instead of us manually making it or being an actual flat raster image, it's making a flat image that's it's not vector, but basically it's made through math, so it's resolution dependent, which is nice. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and put this back on my chair. So we have it on here. What that also means is that if you look at it, see how like right here it looks stretched, right? Because this was a cube that was stretched. So, and if I were to look at the side here, you're gonna see, because it's based on the UVs. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know if you can tell, but like it's much tighter. Okay, see how tight the threads are here, and then how wide they are here? That's because if you look at here, my God, this thing is just gigantic. Okay, let's just make this smaller, stick it where it's supposed to go. There we go. If I look here, let me put this on so you can see it. It's a box that I stretched out, so all of the squares, even though they don't match up there, the UVs are squares. So what I'm going to do whenever you do use these, you'd want to UV the model. In our case, I'm just going to go ahead and just go UV, and I'm going to do automatic. What automatic does is it will automatically try to UV it. So if I look at the UVs here, it's also over here if you go to create automatic. This cut it up into a bunch of chunks and then laid it out. Okay. Although I don't really like the way that it did it. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to select the face of one of these. And then here, and I'm just going to hit scale and scale it longer so that it's more similar. Man, sorry, I know I'm like juggling like a million things. So that it's more similar to what the rug is. See how the rug here is like this? So I'm just going to scale it up a little bit and make sure it fits in there so that it's a little more even. Okay, so see how I made it rectilinear, like this is rectilinear. I mean, I didn't do it at the bottom, but you're not going to see the bottom. And honestly, the sides are so thin, you won't notice it either. So the only one that really matters is the top one. Okay, so we're just going to do that. Scale that down. Okay, so if you look, you can see the stitching feels a little bit wide. I need more of them, okay? So we haven't played around with this before, but a material is actually made up of a whole bunch of things. So we're going to play around with this a little bit. So I want you to select the material. I'm going to bring this over here. Select it here. And then you see these little arrows. This is what they call this. It's a workspace for working with materials. I'm going to click on these double arrows. What that's going to do is it's going to show you. This is a node editor, right? So the idea is that you have these different nodes that do different things. So if you're familiar with programming, basically each one of these are an object, and so they have properties and they have things that they can do. They have functions. So they have values and functions or methods and properties. Anyway. Basically, this is made up of all these things, this material is, okay? So we've been mostly just working here. So you can see the color, ambient color, diffuse, right? You can kind of see that stuff over here. That's what we've been dealing with, okay? We just generated this. This is the cloth 2D texture node. And then this is the shader. The shader is the thing that actually interacts with the renderer that shows it. This does the final, like, applying it. Anyway, before this, though, in order for this to work, this needs to be applied to the model, and that is using this Place 2D texture. This actually is a Place 3D texture. This is the default. Everything we use is basically Place 2D texture, minus this weird 3D texture thing. So anyways, I want you to select this one. So it's the one on the most left, and it says Place 2D texture. This will give you options as far as the UVs are concerned. Now, you can play around with these. I wouldn't, because it's not going to benefit you much, but you'll see this repeat UV. Right now, it's repeating that pattern 4 times. So I'm just going to make that much higher. Let's try 100 by 100. And what that's going to do is it just makes it repeat much more often. So that's still a little bit too not working for me, because it's a little too thick. So I'm just going to go, let's try 250, which is pretty high, but 250. Okay. And that's probably a little bit better. Now we are getting that weird, I forget what it's called. It's like that zebra thing where you get like the weird, when you have patterns. But we're going to call that good. Okay. So now it looks like there's thread there. That's acceptable. Now what I'm going to do is this. I want to make it not just black and white, right? So I'm going to select the material again over here so I can get to it. And you see U color, V color. So basically one represents one and one represents the other. So what I'm going to do is I can change these colors. I can click on this, and let's say I do red. So that'll be the one side, and then we'll do, white for the other. And you can see, ooh. But let's do it, make it a little better, right? So I got some ideas. So let's say we take the U color, instead hook up another 2D texture. And let's do, which one would look fun here? I was going to do ramp, but I don't even see ramp in there. Let's do marble, see what that does. So what that's going to do is it's going to, on the one, it's going to apply the marble texture inside of it. And that kind of gives it a neat pattern. Now let's do the other one. And if you want to adjust these colors, I'm kind of okay. Let's see, wait, vein width. Let's do it a little bit more diffusion. Yeah, contrast. Let's do a little less. Just want to break it up a little bit more. Color balance. Well, you can play around with these as well. I'm not going to, but okay. So I'm gonna go back to my cloth, and for the other one, the V color, I'm gonna click on that, and let's attach to that one. There we go. I'm gonna do a ramp on this one, and what that's going to do is select the ramp here. It gives us a ramp, so it gives us a gradient. So what I can do is select this one, and then I can see the color here. So let's go from, I don't know, an orangey color. All right, so let's go a little bit more orange, and then we'll do a middle color too. So I just click in here. You hit the X to get rid of it, but I'm gonna click in the middle, and then I'll click on this. Come on, pop up. There you go. And let's do, I don't know, a green color-ish. It'd be kind of cool. And then let's do this one, and let's do, I don't know, like a deep maroon color like the other one is. Okay. And so now I have this ramp that's also overlaying, but that one's overlaying in this direction. So you can kind of see it. See how this is a little bit yellow, and then gets kind of the green and then the red? That's basically what's happening, and that's overlaying over top of this carpet. Just looks like I beat the crap out of it. It's overlaying over top of the other thing, right? So this is a procedural texture. So it allows us to create that. Now, if I actually wanted this to look super good, I would, so that's just a flat image that's being laid over top of it, right? It might be nice if maybe we actually had a bump map on it, so the threads actually look like they're bumped up a little bit. So to do that, what I'm going to do is go back to my rug, okay? And so we have that hooked up there, and the rest of this is all good, but you'll see we have this normal bump map. So you remember on the character, we made it look like he had jeans because we added this up and made it look like seams because we painted a bump map. So I'm going to go ahead and apply one to that. So I'm going to hit on this. I'm going to choose the cloth again. And I'm just going to try and put in the same settings I had before, but I'm going to leave it black and white. Okay? So if you look, you can see the bump map laying over top of it. It's that default. But see how it looks three-dimensional? It's adding that default kind of thing. So what I need to do is I'm on that bump that I just created here. You can see it's going to the normal camera. Here's the cloth, okay? But I need to go to the place 2D texture, and I need to put in the same number I did before. So 250 by 250, because that's what the other one is. And what that's going to do is it's going to give it a little extra bumpity bump. But you can see it's super strong, right? It's way stronger than it needs to be, because it is going from black to white. So I'm going to go and I'm going to click on the bump node here, and I'm going to adjust the bump depth. Because right now it's going all the way from nothing to 100%. So if I take this bump depth and do like 0.01, it'll do a little bit, but not a ton, right? If I did like 10, it's going to look terrible because it's going to be like really trying to make it look bumpy. And then this, if I do like 0.1, still a little too strong, but like 0.01, you know, because there would be a little bit of bump in the rug, but you wouldn't really, I mean, it wouldn't be like looking crazy. So that gives us a nice sort of bumpiness to our really ugly rug. That is an ugly rug. It's really ugly. My rug is ugly, but it's not that ugly. Okay. So those are procedural textures in a nutshell. What's nice about these procedural ones is that when you bring them in, they're inside of Maya, so no image has been created, so it makes it really easy. Plus, they're resolution independent, so it looks like this, but I can zoom in as far as I want, and because this is like, it's basically like a vector, it's being made by Matt, I can zoom in, and you can see the resolution is infinite. So that's really nice. So you don't have to worry about like, oh, if I get too close to something, you'll start to see the pixels of the image that's laid over top. It's not an issue with this. And usually it's pretty cost effective as far as CPU power is concerned as well. The very best is honestly just to do images. But to paint images on everything takes a really long time. And when you play video games, that's what they're doing. But they're using other tools that they're more advanced, and we're not going to be playing around with those. They'll use more advanced tools to help them automate that process. But we're not using those here because that's like, it's a whole nother program, and I'm not, you know. If you want to play around with it, it's called Substance Painter. That's like a really cool, there's other ones too, but Substance Painter I really like. Anyway, so we're going to call that good on this video. In the next one, I'm going to show you how to make a seamless texture. So basically a texture that will repeat, okay? So stay on that channel. Meet me after the break.